I'm going to bring this to life here.
Oh, yeah. Don't take deep breaths.
Oh my God, that was good. We got to keep that for the bloopers reel. So, Ali, you really caught my attention when you started talking about inflation on Twitter. And I was thinking, look, you've got all these big shot experts, so-called economists and central bankers who claim that money printing doesn't cause inflation. And I'm seeing this shawarma shop owner from London, Ontario, who says, no, of course it causes inflation. It's happened everywhere. And then you predicted it and you protected your family business against inflation with a very clever financial decision that you made. We'll come back to in a moment. It involves Bitcoin. But before we get there, I really want to understand, from whence did you get the wisdom to foretell the inflation that was coming all the way back in 2020 when all the so-called experts were telling us that we were going to have deflation? How did you know better than all of them?
Yeah, so we basically came to Canada after 2011. We grew up most of our lives in Egypt.
Yes.
And in 2011, there was an Arab Spring. We were in the Arab Spring, part of it. And then we came here after to start our careers here. And my parents have been working for the past 30, 40 years and accumulating their wealth. They had it in real estate and in fiat currency in the Egyptian pound in the banks of Egypt. And then when we came here in 2011, my father actually wanted to retire and come move with us. But what happened after the Arab Spring is that the Egyptian government wanted to borrow, I think it was $12 billion from the IMF. They did that, and then they instantly devalued the currency. Within 2 months, it was down 50%.
Wow.
And then within 5 years, it was down 65% against the US dollar.
Wow.
Which forced my father to continue working for an extra 5 years in order for him to come here to retire.
Wow.
So we've seen inflation back in our country. It affected us. It affected our family.
Right.
And we've seen it happen in countries all around us, in Lebanon and in Turkey. And we were thinking to ourselves when 2020 hit, it's like, if any government, doesn't matter what currency, whether it's Canadian dollar or US dollar, if you're going to apply the same monetary policies and print an insane amount of money,
yeah,
the same thing's going to happen here.
Right.
People here, we realize that people here kind of think, live in a bubble, think that,
it can't happen here.
Exactly.
We're special.
Yeah. They think the Canadian dollar is so strong,
Yeah.
but you know what? If you do the same things, you're going to get the same results. And
we have, if you said the Egyptian currency fell by half in value. Our currency in Canada has fallen by half in value in terms of purchasing real estate, right? Because real estate prices have doubled in 7 years. So the Canadian dollar buys half as much real estate in Canada as it did just 7 years ago. It's the same principle. But so you saw this inflation run rampant. It destroyed your father's wages, your father Mustafa. And as a result, he had to delay for 5 years of his life he lost because of inflation caused by government. And, the Arab Spring is interesting to me because I saw it as a response to governments attacking the economic freedom of the Arab people. The beginning of the Arab Spring was when this Tunisian fruit stand owner, he lit himself on fire. And what a lot of people don't realize is that what had driven him to this point of desperation had nothing to do with religion. It was, we often look at the Middle East and I always assume that the conflicts are religious. But this was about a man who was being constantly hounded by government bureaucrats, yes. Gatekeepers. They would show up at his fruit stand every day and nitpick him and ask him if he had his 15th different permit he needed to sell pears and bananas. And then they finally came up and he, I guess, refused to bribe an official to get them off his back. And so they took away his fruit stand and stole his livelihood.
Yeah.
And to steal a man's livelihood is devastation. It's not just that you can't put food on your table. It's a man's pride, and it's the same for anybody around the world. And so he lit himself on fire, and the Arab people across the region rose up to demand their rights and freedoms back. But I find it interesting that you were able to internalize the knowledge from that moment in history.
That's life experience.
Life experience.
Yeah.
And I was speaking with your dad earlier, and he was saying, in history, you see the future. And I don't know him well, but he strikes me as a very wise man.
Yes.
As an aside, I've spent a little bit of time in Egypt when I was in my early 20s. I backpacked into the Sinai and went next to the Gulf of Aqaba near the Red Sea, where Moses or Musa divided the waters. And
isn't it beautiful over there?
It's an incredible place, and you can stay there for $5 a night with the Bedouin, the traditional Bedouin. They pull the fish right out of the Red Sea. You stay in a little tent. You sit on the ground drinking a nice Turkish coffee, strongest coffee in the world. You can actually eat it with a fork. It's so thick. And anyway, it just lights you up like a Christmas tree when you drink it. But some of my best memories are from there. And the simple principles of life by which the Bedouins have survived on the deserts for thousands of years. And you brought some of that wisdom to here. And as a business owner, you have a shawarma shop. Just got a chance to enjoy some of the incredible product. You were able to apply that wisdom in your business. So tell me, when you saw the money printer starting up,
yes,
you said, this is a flashback, right?
Absolutely.
Like, I've seen this shit before, right?
100%.
And then you said, I'm going to do something about it, right?
I got to do something about it.
Right.
It was more of panic mode.
Yeah.
I entered panic mode. Okay, what do I need to do? I started researching like a maniac. And then I came across this thing called Bitcoin.
Right.
And it's a money. When you first look at it, you're like, okay, you study a little bit, it's some money with a fixed supply that nobody can change it. I was like, okay, that's interesting. And so I started digging in more, bought a little bit, but really started learning more and more about it.
Right.
And the more I learned about it, the more I realized that, this is something that people need more than anything, because most people don't know that they have no say in what happens to their money. And me as a business also, like when I was thinking about it, I was like, I want to focus on my business only. I want to focus on making the best shawarma that I possibly can and serving it to my customer. And I don't want to have to worry about my money getting debased.
Right.
Right? So the idea of Bitcoin is that it's a fixed cap supply money. Right. Which is like something we've never seen in history before. And even gold, which is a pretty good hard money, it still inflates for about 2% a year, which is the new gold supply that comes into the market. Right. This is fixed cap, digital, native to our modern digital economy. It clicked for me. I started orange pilling, as we say in the community, orange pilling my family, my friends, my partners, my parents, started getting them all because I felt like I needed to get people I love into this as fast as I can. And it did its job in flying colors. The governments kept printing more and more and more, devaluing our money more and more. I now the biggest thing for me that upsets me is that my kids, I have 2 kids, how are they going to buy a house? Right. How are they going to start a career? Yeah. Without an opportunity, future becomes very depressing. Right. And
on the house price, let's just have some fun here for a
Yeah,
sec. You bought Bitcoin when it was 10, trading at what, 10 grand Canadian?
10 grand.
What's it at now?
I think it's at 60.
60, okay.
60
So
Canadian.
we're not making any financial advice here. Bitcoin can go down, it can go up, but here's just something very interesting. When did you buy it for 10 grand?
Personally, I started buying back in April for the business we bought.
April 2020.
Yeah.
Okay, so April 2020. So since around that time, house prices in Canada have gone up by about 50% in dollars, right? Okay, so 50% in dollars, right?
Yeah.
But if your source of money was actually Bitcoin, you've increased the purchasing power of Bitcoin relative to the dollar by 6 times over, right? It went from 10 grand to 60 grand, right?
Bingo.
Right. So basically, if you had at the time purchased at that price your Bitcoin, the cost of housing in Bitcoin has actually gone down because Bitcoin has gone up in value faster than housing. So it's actually interesting. It's not so much that housing is becoming more expensive as that our dollar is becoming less and less valuable.
Yeah.
So, because we measure our house prices in Canadian dollars and the government has been destroying the value of the purchasing power of that dollar, it's actually the dollar strength that has been reduced relative to houses rather than just houses increasing relative to dollars. Whereas you protected yourself from that phenomenon, didn't you?
Yes, 100%. And you know what? To add to your point, if you think about it, things should be going down in price as technology advances.
Yes.
Like if you look at something like your phone, a phone 10 years ago is like 10 times worse than the phone is today.
Yes.
Right? And so technology advances at an exponential scale.
That's right.
So we build better, we get smarter, we build better electronics, and that's efficiencies in our life, right? So,
well, just one quick example on that to support your point of view. As Jeff Booth says, technology is a deflationary phenomenon. It actually reduces the cost of producing things. It actually reduces the number of materials you need to produce things. So, one example is prior to the printing press, it took something like 5,000 person hours to produce a single book because everything had to be transcribed. And you had to have a human being sitting there writing it. It took a lot more effort at the time to create what they then had as parchment paper. And then the binding was a manual effort. So 5 or 10,000 person hours for one copy of a book, not for one book. And that doesn't even include the authorship, right? Now, a copy of a book is just a tap of the fingers. They just replicate it digitally on your e-reader. There's literally no incremental cost in man or woman hours to produce another copy of a book. So think of it, there's no transportation cost. It's just light that's being zapped around the internet. So really, through technology, through the power of our machines that can produce things on a roboticized assembly lines, for example, the warmth that you use to make your food used to have to start fires and put the food, like all of this technology should be bringing costs down.
Everything.
And yet, things are more expensive. Like I have this buddy whose family immigrated from Italy, and back in the early 70s, they bought a nice bungalow in downtown Ottawa. I think it was 40 or 50 grand they paid. The dad paves roads, the mom makes sandwiches at seniors' homes, neither speak English or even have any university education. They paid off the home in 7 years. That same house, their grandkids who will graduate with university education would have no chance of affording today. So how is it that we're so much further behind?
And we got better at building houses.
Exactly. Yeah. So what's the phenomenon? Like how is it that we're falling farther and farther behind? The system is broken. It's designed for bankers and bureaucrats, for big government and big corporation to get richer and more powerful, and while destroying the wages of the working people. That's what's happening.
Yes.
And that's what you're trying to fix by promoting an alternative approach of free choice in money.
Exactly. This is exactly why we are so excited about Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is a deflationary currency, right? It's a fixed amount.
Right.
And then as people get more productive, you have the same amount of money going around, things actually get cheaper.
Right.
So for me, since I converted personally to a Bitcoin standard, a house actually got cheaper because the value of the Bitcoin went up more than the inflation of the economy. Mm-hmm. So it's something that we here at Tahinis are very passionate about, and we think it can be helpful for Canadians. We love, even though we're just a shawarma franchise, and we do pretty good shawarmas, but we're passionate about giving people a little bit more than that, and Bitcoin for us is hope for future. So that's why we love talking about it.
Right. Well, listen, if inflation is the result of too many dollars chasing too few goods, right? More dollars bidding on the same number of goods always equals a higher price. What you're saying is that the Bitcoin protocol is written in a way that there can only ever be 21 million coins. And therefore, as the goods and services that we as a people produce grows, but the number of coins does not, then the purchasing power of each coin goes up, theoretically goes up. Now, that could, there will be fluctuations, right? Yes. It's going to go up and down and up and down for some time. But the point is that no central authority can come along and say, oh, we're going to just create a bunch of new coins, because the protocol prevents that from happening. And the decision-making power on that protocol is dispersed all around the world to thousands upon thousands of people who are on the network. And it takes the majority of the processing power on the network to make a decision to change the rules. And it would be against the interest of all the participants to change them to increase the supply. So you've got a fixed supply that caps out, and a growing number of goods and services that it can buy. So over time, the theory is that the purchasing power of each coin should grow. Is that, did I get that right?
You got that perfectly. I'll also add on top of that, like there's a lot of great features about Bitcoin, but another thing is that it's digital, right? So, and because it's digital, it's easy to divide it. It's very, very divisible.
Right.
So it's not.
So you don't have to buy it. You don't have to buy a transaction with one coin. You can buy it with a fraction of a coin.
Exactly.
What is that called?
So each Bitcoin has 100 million satoshis.
Satoshis. Okay.
So that's 2.1 quadrillion satoshis on the Bitcoin network. It's not like people think, oh, I can't buy a full Bitcoin because it's 60,000 or 80, whatever it is. Nobody starts buying a full Bitcoin.
Right.
That's not the point. The point is it's sound money, and the other thing too, and like we just did a transaction using the Bitcoin Lightning Network.
Yeah.
Where you bought a shawarma with the Lightning Network, and it cost you
delicious shawarma, by the way.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It cost you 1 satoshi, Pierre. That's 0.06 cents.
Wow.
And it cost us as a merchant nothing.
And what would it have cost you if I had bought it with, say, my debit card? What would that have cost you in fees as a small business retailer?
Debit card. So credit cards are the main way of payment. Credit cards fees can range between 2.5 to 3%.
Wow. So let's just do the math here. Let's say it's a $10 shawarma.
Yeah.
Then basically you're paying, what does it work out to, 20...
math on the spot is not my strong suit.
20 cents on the purchase, right? That's 2%.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 20 cents of the $10 purchase of the shawarma is going to Visa.
And the banks and all the settlements. Like with Visa, Visa is just a network, but there's lots of banks involved. So my bank, the customer bank, Visa's in the middle.
So, but they're getting a bite out of your shawarma.
Yeah, everybody
every time.
Gets a bite.
Yeah, but by contrast, in this case, it was less than a penny that would have gone to the Lightning Network to facilitate the Bitcoin for shawarma transaction that we just recently did.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that's incredible for commerce. Think about what would, the impact of that it would have on global remittances, commerce, you name it. It's gonna disrupt the world, and that's just one aspect, the commerce aspect. The other thing too is security.
Yeah.
Security is a major thing because who knows if some other type of protocol gets hacked, or a government decides that they want to freeze someone's bank account, or this and that, or if war happens and people want to escape with their money. Bitcoin gives you security because you can theoretically escape, for example, a war zone with the password in your head. So you can escape with all of your wealth in your head.
Right.
And that's incredible.
Right.
Right? And nobody can mess with that. Like, it's so powerful that if you get Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Facebook, put all their computers to try to attack the network, they wouldn't even put a dent on the network.
Interesting.
That's how powerful it is.
And now, immigrants to Canada who remit money back to poorer countries for their relatives, do they have any advantage in using Bitcoin to do that versus traditional banking system?
Absolutely. We just saw El Salvador, for example. They made Bitcoin legal tender because they are one of the biggest remittances countries. People send money from the U.S. to El Salvador.
Right.
And Western Union, between Western Union and bandits sitting outside of Western Union collecting a fee on people receiving money, it was around a 30% cut. So
30%?
Yes.
So you're trying to help a poor family member who might be starving in
You want to send him $100, he gets 70.
Oh my God, he's getting chewed up by the
Yes.
middleman.
Yeah.
The middleman. But the middleman could become a gatekeeper, right? Do you worry that the traditional banking system and all the vested interests in it will try to try and fight it, try to convince governments to shut it down or henpeck it to death and prevent it from flourishing?
Yeah, I mean, they'll try.
Yeah.
But, Blockbuster, when Netflix came out, they wanted to... They saw that they were losing business.
Okay.
So they wanted to do something innovative, and they ended up putting a candy aisle in their stores, and that was their move to protect themselves. Eventually, technology wins.
Right.
Open source network wins.
Right.
The world is moving towards this day after day. We're seeing country after countries. Their currencies are getting devalued, whether it's Turkey, Lebanon, Venezuela, Zimbabwe, you name it. So it's the same way the internet grew. I think Bitcoin is going to have the same adoption rate, and in 10 years we're going to see the majority of people on Earth using it.
You think so?
Absolutely.
Wow. Well, listen, I'm better at predicting the past than predicting the future.
I know you are.
You're better at predicting.
You're great at it.
You're better at predicting both than I am, as you demonstrated. Because I didn't buy Bitcoin back in early 2020, even though people like Jeff Booth encouraged me to. But I do own some now, and that's how I was able to buy the delicious shawarma. And you know what I do like, though? I've always believed in decentralization.
Yes.
One of my heroes, maybe my greatest hero of history, is Abraham Lincoln. The great liberator in America. And he said, what can be done by the individual, leave to the individual. What the individual can't do, leave to the family. What the family can't do, leave to the locality. And what the locality can't do, leave to the state, or in our case, province. And what the province or state can't do, then bring to the federal government, the central government, right? Yeah. So his view was that you should decentralize power as much as possible. Because decentralized decision-making is always the best. And it's obvious why, right? You have more brain power when you include more people. And that's what the blockchain enables, is that it's decentralized decision-making that can't be controlled by any central authority. Because for those who don't understand it, a decision to change the rules has to be approved by the majority of the processing power on the network. And all the transactions on the public ledger, like even the Bitcoin purchase of my shawarma, has to be validated across the Bitcoin network. So really, you have a decentralized confirmation that I, in fact, paid you the Satoshi Bitcoin for my shawarma. That is validated, kind of stamped, but stamped by thousands of people all around the world. So there's no one single bank that could come in and interrupt it. And this is how we're going to take power away from politicians and bankers and give it back to the people. That's
true. I mean, the potential for the Bitcoin network to do in the future is limitless. Like, even though I've studied it for over 1,000 hours, I still can't imagine the possibilities, because there's so much that can happen when you just fix the money, Pierre.
Right.
The money is the main problem.
Yeah.
And fixing the money can, can change the world literally.
Right.
And it affects every single aspect of our lives, how we think about the future, how we think about our kids, how we think about our families. Like, how many kids do I want to have?
Yeah.
Right? If I know that the future is shit, I'm not gonna want to have a lot of kids.
Right.
Right? But if I'm optimistic about the future and I know that I can work today and save my value for the future, I want to have a big family. I want to, build great businesses. I want to do more in my life.
Right.
And this is a game changer, and hopefully, people will...
Listen, money is like, it's the price signal. It's like a laser beam,
Yes.
right? It's like Milton Friedman, the great economist, talked about how no one can make a pencil.
Yeah.
Pencils are made by thousands of people who don't even know they're making a pencil, right? Like, they could be in a mine producing the minerals to make the yellow paint. Someone else is cutting down the lumber to make the wood. Another person is in another part of the world mining the lead. The rubber for the eraser comes off a rubber tree in Asia.
Yeah.
And all of these different components are being made by workers who have no idea that they're making a pencil. So why are they making it? Well, because they're being zapped a price signal. Their company is being told, this is what lead goes for, this is what lumber goes for, this is what rubber goes for, and that price signal incentivizes the production. And so they all conspire to create this pencil, and then they zap one single number to your local store, which says this pencil costs you, 25 cents. And that is a price signal, a piece of information that is zapped to the person's purchasing. They say that pencil's worth more than the cost, I'm going to buy it, right? But when you screw up that price signal, you mess up the entire system, right? It's like remember when we had those, maybe you're too young, those old televisions with the antennas?
Yeah.
And you move the antennas out of the way and the whole screen goes staticky?
Yes.
Well, that's effectively what happens when you screw up the price signal with inflation. The relationships between buyer and seller, between lender and borrower, between saver and spender, they get all screwed up, and the system, the information signals get messed up, and the economy starts to break down. But if you have sound money, then that you have clear, simple communication of price information and value between human beings, and it allows us to collaborate spontaneously to create the most magical goods that save lives, that improve our health, that bring families together, and make for a better and more peaceful world. And that's why we need to restore sound money and end this multi-millennia abuse by leaders and dictators of our cash. I think we have a chance to do that. And my view is freedom. Let people choose. I'm not going to force anybody to use a particular type of cryptocurrency as a prime minister. I'm simply going to give you the freedom to choose it. If you believe that the Bitcoin is the best tool for you to transact, as Ali has decided, well, you can do that. If you decide it's Ethereum or Dogecoin or the Canadian dollar, you can do that too. But what we need in this, as long as you pay all of your taxes on all of the same taxes you would pay in normal money, as long as you follow all the same laws as everyone else, everything that is legal with Canadian dollars should be legal with Bitcoin, everything that's illegal should be illegal. But as long as you follow the same laws, pay the same taxes, and respect the same norms, you should be free to decide what kind of money you use. And guess what else this will do? It will force governments to compete rather than just having a monopoly. What do monopolies do? They lead to poor products. And that's why our money is so bad right now, because it has no competition. If there were competition, central banks would have to create a better product.
Exactly.
To convince people to continue to transact in it.
Right now, the central banks do have a monopoly on money, and money is everything that holds value to us.
Exactly.
And by distorting that signal, like you said, it distorts every single aspect of our lives. So this is an important
And it makes our work go up in smoke, just like that.
Yeah.
So, well, listen, thanks for what you're doing. Thanks for spreading the message.
Thank you for
You have an
coming
amazing family story. I can definitely relate to it. My wife is from Venezuela, and she and her family came here for a better life the same way as my family did 100 years ago, the same way your family did. And we need this to be a place of promise. Wilfrid Laurier was asked, what is Canada's nationality? He said, Canada's free and its nationality is freedom. And that is the truth. We have no ethnic nationality in this country. We have one
100%.
nationality that is shared for everyone and it unites us all, and that is freedom. And let's lock arms to make this the freest country in the world so that people can take control of their lives.
Absolutely, and I
Thanks,
wish
brother.
you the best. Thank you for coming here.
Appreciate it. Thank you very
Thank you
much
so
for your
much.
wonderful hospitality.
Absolutely, anytime. My house is open 24/7. It's an open door policy here, so anytime, Pierre.
Thanks, brother.
You're welcome here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.